What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G.S. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the June 4th, 2022 edition of Talking Smack. This is going up a bit later than I usually put it up, usually on Saturdays or on Sundays. This is going up on Monday. I had an extremely busy weekend from Thursday through Sunday, and even today and going forward. The summer is off to a very hectic start, in a good way, which has meant less content here on the channel in recent days. I apologize for that. We did have my interview with, not Elias, but rather Elias's younger brother, Ezekiel, go up here on the channel earlier today. Check out that when you get a chance. That was a lot of fun. So that went up today, hoping for another interview with NXT's own Joe Gacy tomorrow. These were supposed to be up over the weekend, just didn't have the time. So check out both video interviews when you get a chance, as well as all the other content coming here to the channel in the days to come. But like I said, today we're talking Smack from Saturday. And usually it would be outdated, and I always review Talking Smack, no matter how late it is, because I got a streak going here. I'm not going to miss an episode. But on more serious matters, though, on a more serious note, it's the fact that although this episode would usually be outdated, with it being the day after a pay-per-view, almost nothing of what happened on SmackDown on Friday had anything to do with the show that we got on Sunday. And Hell in the Cell was a great show last night. Even the Moss and Corbin match was fine. We'll get into that a little bit later on here. But everything else that happened on SmackDown had no relevance to the pay-per-view last night at all. It was basically a Raw pay-per-view last night, with one SmackDown match, which was fine. The rest of the pay-per-view was all Raw matches, so a little bizarre. They got to even out the star power and the storylines and stuff like that. And there were matches they could have done. Natalya, as we'll get into, became the #1 contender to the championship on Friday for the SmackDown Women's Championship. They could have done that on Sunday. They're not. They're waiting to do that another time. They could have done Ricochet and Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. Instead, they're saving that for next week. So there were several matches they could have done on the pay-per-view on Sunday. They just chose not to. And it made for a very good, strong, I thought, 7-match card for a 3-hour show. So I can't really complain. But anyway, on to Talking Smack. Jackie Redmond, Matt Camp in the studio, recapping the main event that saw the Usos knock off Riddle and Shinsuke Nakamura to retain the undisputed WWE Tag Team titles. They then run down the biggest headlines from the show, including Jinder Mahal versus Humberto. If that's one of your big headlines from SmackDown, you know the show sucks. But Mahal won despite the dancing distraction that was Shanky at ringside, who they're calling a skyscraping individual now. The skyscraper that is Shanky. They said that probably fucking 5 to 7 times on SmackDown on Friday. It was unbearable on commentary. But they try to interview him here backstage, Megan Morant, that is. He just dances. Jinder Mahal interrupts and says, listen, you're learning from a former WWE champion, and don't remind me. That's my own analysis there, not what Mahal says. But he said that he almost lost that match because of Shanky, and that he's got to get focused and he's got to get serious. JBL, who was the special guest analyst on this episode for Talking Smack, says the dancing worked in Mahal's favor. He actually won the match, and says, but, he should dance afterward, though. It worked in this one instance, but he should probably save it for afterward. As far as the tag team title match is concerned, he commends the Usos for having a rescue animal in Sami Zayn, which I thought was, not what he called Sami here, but what Sami did on SmackDown and playing Roman's music, helping the Usos retain the tag titles, I thought was a very clever finish. And anyway, he praises Zayn. He calls him bonkers. Doesn't know if he's going to get to be a part of the Bloodline officially. I know he's an honorary member right now, JBL says, but maybe antics like this will only help his cause and getting on the good side of the Bloodline. He also says that Randy Orton is the perfect mentor for Riddle. He's a big fan of Riddle and calls him incredibly talented. They then recap the 6-man tag team match that saw the Brawling Brutes, Butch, Sheamus, Ridge Holland knock off the New Days, Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, as well as Drew McIntyre. They talk about how, or Matt Camp brings up, if a street fight is coming, what's it going to take to culminate this feud? And I'm thinking, we already had the culmination of the feud fucking weeks ago in the tables match. What was it, the Friday before WrestleMania Backlash? That should have been the big blow-off, and it wasn't. It just kept going, and we're still getting more matches between these two teams, between these two trios. Drew's in the mix now, so I guess that freshens things up only ever so slightly. Matt Camp says, and I agree, I would love to see Drew McIntyre versus Butch out of this. The problem is, Matt Camp says he likes the feud, and Redmond even says it's far from over. It might be far from over, she says. And I almost fucking turned the show off at that point. I'm thinking, both SmackDown and Talking Smack, you're thinking to myself, holy shit, this shit has got to end. This has been going on 4 months, and it's not even entertaining. It's not compelling. The matches are fine. Some of them are better than others. They're just not engaging, and I really just don't care. But anyway, they recap the six-pack challenge that saw Natalya become the #1 contender to the SmackDown Women's Championship. As I said earlier, Matt Camp says that she merely just took advantage of a situation and won the match. Natalya backstage tells Megan Morant that she won because she's the best of all time. That's what she calls herself, the boat. I wish that boat would sink, but whatever. She boasts about the fact that she has 647 wins in WWE, more than any other female athlete in this company's history. And that is an impressive number. I include almost all of those are house show wins, and she's won a fair amount of matches on TV. But then again, when you're around for 14 fucking years and don't get hurt, that's bound to happen. But anyway, she says she's out for blood when it comes to Ronda Rousey. And also that she plans to stomp a mud hole in Ronda Rousey's face. What is she, fucking Stone Cold Steve Austin now? Matt Camp mentions the fact they actually used to train together well before Ronda Rousey even came to WWE in 2018. So they go back a long way, and that they used to be friends even during their time in WWE together. But Rousey needs this win to prove that she's not a fluke, which to think that Rousey would have any trouble whatsoever beating Natalya is a joke to me, but whatever. They also play up the potential submissions of both women and kind of predict how the match is going to go. Matt Camp and Jackie talk about that before recapping the Moss and Corbin match. Not what we got a Hell in the Cell last night. This was from Friday. They talk about the original encounter between the two, and I'm not talking about WrestleMania Backlash, but rather the rematch in SmackDown that went all of like a minute or two before Moss got himself disqualified. They did that to set up the no-holds-barred match, the rematch for the pay-per-view, but it was still stupid. There were other ways you could have done that than what they did here on SmackDown. It was fucking dumb. They made the rematch official for Hell in the Cell, no-holds-barred, which, as I said now, recording this after the fact, it was a decent match. Backstage, Madcap Moss tells Megan Morant that it felt good hitting Corbin with the chair, but he's mad that he couldn't finish the job. He says that he's just built different. And when informed that the match on Sunday was going to be a no-holds-barred match, and like I said, I'm recording this on Monday, he just says that's exactly what I want. And that was all we got from Moss. I'm liking the intensity, no more jokes. They changed the music, they changed his look, no more suspenders. That's great. I still think he's incredibly fucking generic, but it's a step in the right direction. The only thing they need to change now, and I'm hoping this will be made official now that he's beaten Corbin and hopefully ended the feud as of Sunday, but they changed the name as well. Either to Riddick Moss or just Moss would be pretty dumb, but the Madcap name is pretty stupid, so they got to get rid of that and go back to calling him Riddick Moss or something else. Back in the studio, Jackie and Matt run down the card for Hell in the Cell this past Sunday. JBL says he's pro Corbin. He's disappointed in Moss and that you can't bite the hand that feeds you sort of thing. Matt Camp actually compares JBL to Corbin and that they're similar in many ways, and I can certainly see those comparisons. Matt Camp also says the no-holds-barred stipulation is in Moss's favor. He's got to focus and put Corbin away, which is what he couldn't do on SmackDown. And JBL just says that the man who built Moss could very well be the same person who destroys him, and that all the hoopla could work against you in a match like this. And obviously, as we saw on Sunday, Moss won that match. To close out here, they talk about bold predictions for the pay-per-view this past weekend. Matt Camp picks Cody Rhodes to win Hell in the Cell, or it might have been JBL. I think it was JBL who picks Rhodes to win Hell in the Cell. That was his big, bold prediction, although it really wasn't all that bold. Most people expected him to win, I would say, and calls him a future world champ as well. Matt Camp says as far as the triple threat for the Raw Women's Championship goes, it's going to be the biggest win of Bianca's career if she can get the job done, and again, she did. He said that it's hard to deny Bianca Belair right now. She's on a roll, and she was able to pick up the victory at the pay-per-view. Jackie also questions, and we'll find out tonight on Raw, what a loss could mean, another loss could mean for Becky Lynch. She was not pinned in that match on Monday. I'm sure she'll be coming back after Bianca, and we'll get some sort of a rematch either sometime on Raw or at the next pay-per-view, and I would rather they move away from that feud for right now, but I could also see them just doing one big blow-off for the next pay-per-view. But I guess we'll see. I would hope it's SummerSlam, but that's just me, because that's where the feud started a year ago. It would make sense. And then to close out here, they promote NXT in Your House for Saturday, which ended up being a solid show. That was Talking Smack for June 4th, 2022. Nothing overly eventful here, but I thought I would just watch it just in case. And they did talk about a lot of stuff that had nothing to do with Hell in the Cell. And it was primarily SmackDown related, and a lot of what we're seeing on SmackDown right now, first of all, is not good, and second of all, has nothing to do with the pay-per-views they have going on every month. So, very weird. Talking Smack was fine. The pay-per-view last night was great. I really enjoyed Hell in a Cell a lot more than I thought I would for a show that really had not a lot of build whatsoever, specifically on the SmackDown side. And we had no SmackDown matches on the show aside from Corbin and Moss, which, like I said, ended up being decent. It was an enjoyable event, and I'll have my written reviews up of everything soon on WrestleRant.com, so keep an eye out for those. And like I said earlier, check out my upcoming interviews, with video interviews that is, with Raw superstar Elias's younger brother Ezekiel and NXT star Joe Gacy. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.